Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Laureli Shimayo. This is our MeWe Metaphysics and Wellness panel for energizing body, mind, heart, and soul. We have events throughout the Northwest and many of them online. Today is one of our panels. It's an awakening panel, and the theme is finding peace and happiness. There are 6 or maybe 7 of us on the panel tonight. We'll be introducing ourselves and talking about the theme, and practitioners feel free to mix it all in together, introducing yourself and what you do and how you work with people, and also talking about the theme. And then we'll be answering questions. We'll say a little bit more before we start taking questions, and let's get started with our introductions. So maybe, yeah, we'll do kind of similar to what we did before. We'll do Henry, Felicia, Susy, Sue, and then Joy. And Viana might be joining us shortly too. All right, go ahead. And Henry, you've got, like 2+ minutes. So I will go find my little flower rock and I'll twirl it around if you get after 2.5 minutes. So go ahead.
All right, so I'm Henry India Holden, and I'm a mystic and the creator of the Mystics Tarot and Oracle cards, which is a unique deck, very encompassing of all of life, really, and also of a unique way of reading the tarot. And what gives me inner peace and happiness is seeing how my clients' lives change after our sessions. And a couple of my qualifications are life coaching and peer counseling, and you can learn more about me by going into the chat section. And if you're new, in your menu below at the bottom edge, it'll say chat. When you click on that, you can find a chat and all the information about all of us. And I can help you in all areas of life, but people mainly work with me in the area that I think, for me at least, is a fantastic way of finding inner peace and happiness, which is making a difference. And then, of course, what immediately comes up, that what you're dealing with is, well, I'm just one person. How can I make what I'm doing and saying make a difference? And these are the kind of roadblocks that I'm an expert in overcoming, because they have been in my life. And they still are, like just this morning, I was reading about this 25-year-old congressman who is going to change the world. And I immediately compared myself to him and went into a deep, dark place. And then I turned to my life coach, who's my partner. Yay, I'm so blessed. And they reminded me of the 100 ripple rule, which is that every person you make a difference with, they make it, it's a ripple of 100 people's have a difference made to them. And then also the unforeseen consequence, which is, I don't know, maybe I'm going to make a difference with someone tonight, and that person's going to be the next Oprah or the next Maximilian Frost, the young congressman. And so the tool that I'm using this evening is showing up. And because I was so depressed this morning that I'm making this huge global difference. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to be here because I said I'd be here. But showing up is a way of engaging, and it's a way of being present to how can I help you, rather than about, oh, what's going on with me. And so that's, to me, that's a powerful way for peace and happiness. And I'm looking forward to hearing, in what area of your life you're seeking more peace and more happiness, and help you how to find that.
Thanks so much, Henry. All right, Felicia.
Aloha. My name is Felicia Miller Johnson, and my name literally means happy. But guess what? There was a time that I was not happy. I was frustrated and dealing with feelings of imposter syndrome, feeling I had to be twice as good in order to achieve in life. Then one day I was driving down the road after having this big fight with my husband, literally took my hands off the wheel at the stoplight and was like, okay, you're going to have to show me. And a phrase that came to mind is, Felicia, you've heard the phrase work smarter, not harder. Well, now it's time for you to live smart. And so the way that I gained back my happiness is to see myself and awaken, master my emotions, ask, believe, and receive, relax, relate, and release things that are no longer serving me, and talk wisely and ascend. These are the things that I remember when I want to be encouraged to have peace and to live smart. So now today I have a show called All Intuitive Conversation. And as a light worker, I use my clairaudient abilities to ask intuitive questions and channel feedback to individuals that encourage them to live smart and ascend to new levels of success. So I look forward to engaging with each of you My modality that I use is Sekhem energy. I have like an Egyptian spirit, and that is the main avenue that I serve. And so I look forward to connecting with each one of you today.
Thank you, Felicia. Susy is next.
Hey y'all, it's Susy Parker Goins of Blue Lightning Healing. And as a channel, I bring source through in ways that make you feel comfortable so that you can relax and release into the energy. So Archangel Michael comes through. He feels all kinds of surfer dude sometimes for me, but he's going to manifest differently for you. And that's part of this finding happiness and finding peace, is giving yourself permission to be okay with stuff. Also, I am an energy worker. I do Reiki. I use cards, not tonight, but I do what's needed in the moment. So if that means talking to an inner child to help coax them out so they can come back into the light, talking to an ancestor, asking them to cross over, or finding their origin point of trauma so we can heal them, and then as the saying goes, as you heal, I heal, and as I heal, you heal. Because you see, everything's energy, everything is one, we're all connected. So any healing that anybody gets to do shifts energy in such a way that everybody they come in contact with, or just the continuum, shifts also. So that for me has been, honestly, for the last month or so, I've been really focusing on that. And being on this panel tonight has put me in that mindset of, oh, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm finding my happiness. I'm finding more of my happiness, and I'm finding more of my peace. So for me, that's meant, oh, I get to let go of that thought pattern. I get to let go of that toxic relationship. And I get to pull in this other stuff, more connection, deeper connection, and allow myself to honestly more fully express who I am and what I can do. So there are big projects for me that I'm working on. And I'm excited to be a part of this community that helps me find my way and find my family. I'm at bluelightninghealing.com. I'm actually on 2 podcasts. My original one, which is Blue Lightning Healing Meditations, you can find that on Spotify. And I've started a new one with 2 other practitioners in the community you may know, Lisa Stewart and Kai Bertrand. And we call that Mystic Mosaic podcast, where we break down concepts and we give our opinions and our perspectives on it. And that debuts every Thursday at 12:30. You can find it on YouTube, but you can also find it on Spotify. And I'm just excited to be able to have the information and be able to share it with everybody. So thanks. I love you, and I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Thanks so much, Susy. Sue is next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sujata or Sue. I am an intuitive empath, and I use Akashic Records, Reiki, and energy healing to do my sessions. I like to take time with my clients and actually have them express what it is that they are going through and where it is that they're trying to get to. I call it stories. Which story are you currently living in? Which story do you want to go get into to start living that story, to be that character in that story? And it's amazing how we carry the messages in ourselves. We just have to have somebody, or sometimes just that realization of, oh, this is what I'm saying, and this is why I'm saying it. And that helps create that internal change. Yes, the messages come to me, come to you. I do a lot of work with my team, but at the same time, I think we have to get to a place where we're ready to listen. And that's where I try to take my clients to. So I look forward to any questions and enjoying this panel today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sujata. And next we have Joy.
Thank you, Laureli. My name is Joy J. Lee. I'm an energy healer and sensitive. I'm certified in Hand Mudras, which are an energy healing modality similar to Reiki. The term mudras is Sanskrit for gesture, and like Reiki, hand mudras are a form of energy healing used to balance and heal a person's energies or issues. With hand mudras, one can address things such as chakra blockages, energy balancing, release of negative energies, emotional and physical issues, and much more. I work remotely as well as in person, and I'm also work with LifeWave phototherapy stem cell patches, which are a wonderful, groundbreaking stem cell healing modality that operate on the principle of phototherapy. The patches work by reflecting infrared light emitted by the body back into the body. And each patch uses different frequencies, so they address different issues. The patches can address similar issues to those hand mudras, and aid things like rapid wound healing. In terms of peace and happiness, I think that's one of the ultimate goals of the people that I work with. And it's always something that I have in mind when I'm working with people. And both of those modalities have specific means of addressing calm and a sense of peace and calm, inner calm. So you can reach me at through my website, diamondfirephoenix.com. I have event specials, 30 minutes for $25 or 50 minutes for $40, first 30-minute consultation free. And I also do intuitive readings with Oracle decks, which I will be doing tonight. Looking very much forward to working with all the practitioners and everybody here. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. And I'm Laureli Shimayo. I'm an intuitive eye reader, body psychology coach, and matchmaker, and I run all these different MeWe Fairs events. When I read your eyes, I'm doing what I think we all are doing all the time. I think that we all read each other. If you think about when you've met someone with dark sunglasses and you can't see their eyes, there's so much missing. And as soon as you see their eyes, there's so much there. We subconsciously pick up so much about each other. So I'm doing really the same thing. And I've come to be really attuned in myself to notice what I feel, what I sense, when I see you. And also there are certain specific physical characteristics and patterns that I'm looking at in your eyes. And by doing that, I'm able to read your soul. I'm able to help you better understand who you are and what you're about and why you're here. I recognize things like your natural talents, how you make decisions, how you most easily communicate, what motivates you, how you protect yourself, consciousness lessons. I can help you get a better sense of what your purpose is and take more steps to align your life towards your purpose. I think Henry made a reference to this earlier on. I believe that when we do what we love, when we're living our purpose, we can't help but feel joy and happiness. Sometimes we have lessons of how to do it in a way that's the easiest and the most natural for us. But getting in alignment with our purpose and having as much as we can of all that we do be in alignment with our purpose, I think is such a great way there. So in my work, I help people better understand themselves and see how to do everything in alignment with who they are, what kinds of career paths are a great fit, which organizations and which people to work with, if they're running their own business. Are they doing something that's in alignment with their purpose? Are they doing the things that they're naturally good at? Or are they doing things that drain them and pull their energy? I think that we all can't do everything, right? So there are things we do better than other things. And it's great to collaborate with each other. So we focus on the areas that energize us the most and where we are the most of service to others. I also love to use my work for matchmaking. I think that by being around others that help fuel us and energize us, where we find synergy together, helps us all have more energy, more peace and happiness, more alignment, and therefore it's better for everyone else as well. This is true for friends, community, like we're all together now, and in romantic relationships. Oh, Laureli Shimayo, my website is intuitiveeyereading.com or matchmakingsoulmates.com. And I'm excited to be here with you all today. For me, in some ways, it was a funny theme because I'm often like work. And I've had a particularly peaceful and happy day today. I didn't intend to do that. To have a little bit of the like, oh, okay, this panel, it's like a soft theme. Can I really do this? And yeah, so I love how everything came together, and I just heard my partner just got home and I can hear her dancing and playing with the animals in the other room. So yeah, it's great. All right. Well, let's see. We may also be joined by another practitioner as well. I've texted her. We'll see if she makes it. It is Viana Fox. She is in her 80s and came to her very first fair just a few months ago. And she has been channeling subtle beings and connecting with subtle beings and transferring information from them, using information from them her whole life, and didn't know she could talk about this out loud with other people. And so she's discovered us, and we love her. And she also does embodiment healing, all kinds of embodiment work. And hopefully she will be joining us too. She might jump in the middle. Well, some people find peace and happiness in some unusual ways. Okay. We got
Let's
really
take a minute
boring.
and let that go.
I know. We got kind of boring, and they haven't been bombing us as much lately, but all right. Okay. Whew. Oh, we get to do some video editing. Right. This is only a test. How much can we find our place? How well can we find our place of peace and happiness?
I just find it so interesting how unoriginal it is. And how important it seems to them. and so central. It's like it's just that little thing.
Yeah, no, I'm taking deep breaths and I feel some waves of sadness.
I'm sorry.
Well, one way that I find peace and happiness for myself is like allowing what is and allowing what's here to flow. Oh, yeah.
And I'm sending all of us some Reiki right now.
I'm waiting till the second person. Okay, great. Just joined audio. Thanks so much for the two of you that just joined us. We just got Zoom bombed, so we are recovering our energy and the energy that we want to have here from that experience. So you're arriving just in a moment of a little bit more quiet. And deep breaths. All right, I'm putting in the chat again what we're here doing today. So this is our panel on finding peace and happiness. And I thought it was a little funny in some ways that we chose finding peace and happiness, because really to me it's about creating and co-creating peace and happiness. And in some ways with what just happened, it's a reminder of, oh yeah, sometimes in the there's an opportunity to look to find it as well as create it again. Well, we just did some introductions and spoke a bit about peace and happiness, and I was going to ask practitioners if you had anything else you wanted to share. But yes, Susy, go ahead and jump in with whatever's here for you.
I'm psychic. I knew you were going to say that. No, it's interesting finding peace and happiness, and for me, it's allowing me to have that peace and happiness because there's some standard I must meet, but there's also owning my peace and happiness. There are times somebody's talked about, comparing yourself to other people and what you have and what they have. And that's been part of the process I've experienced recently is feeling somebody trying to get at my version of peace and happiness, but they are them. So there's that phrase I use, I am I and you are you, and in between us is a whole lot of God, and allowing them to have their experience. And so I can facilitate it. I can do what I can, but I cannot make them have their happiness. So that had me lose sight of what made me happy. And so, like this, Laureli, you're talking about having a lovely, peaceful weekend or day. And, my holidays were lovely and peaceful, and my family was here. And I was able to just marinate in that peace and joy and love. And it's not fleeting. I think when we find out that it's not fleeting, that it's something to chase, we don't achieve that level of happiness because we're not looking at what it is we have around us that makes us happy. So making somebody happy could be doing finances, working with numbers. I don't find great joy in that, but somebody else does. And who am I to tell them they're wrong? So I'm looking for those things that make me happy, which is hanging out here and recognizing people on the screen, getting my massage today, making my friend Umi laugh, doing all of these things and finding that peace within me. I think we all have it. It's just a question of when we let it come out. And frequently there are those traumas that block us from that. So there's even peace and happiness to be derived from actually doing healing work. So I am grateful that we have this community, this avenue for us to join in. And even though somebody else wants to be a poop head about it, that's not my circus, not my monkeys. It's their thing, and may they get exactly what they deserve, blah, 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 blah. But we're still here and we can still find our happiness. We can still own our happiness.
They both
So
got
thanks.
reported. Yeah, they both got reported.
Yeah,
All right.
well,
Henry.
cute.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been, as I said, my partner is also a life coach, so I'm very blessed in that I have a live-in life coach. I don't have to make an appointment because I can just say, I need some help. It's like blessing. So I got really present today. It's so interesting. I got present to how being activated or triggered, different people call it different things, but we have these patterns and these stories, and they don't serve us, and we work on them and they move into the background, but they can be triggered. Like mine was when I read about this young man who is less than half my age and is already making such a huge difference on the global stage, if you will. Certainly on the American stage, and the American stage is a global stage. And I got so triggered. And I think that this is this kind of being triggered by our stories, because my story is, it has to be like this impact that's global. Like I was saying to my partner, they're like, why are you triggered? You make a huge difference to a lot of people, I hear, when you're in session. And I'm like, well, 8 billion, 100 people right there. And that's a story, because to each one of those people, the difference that our working together made means the world. So it's not something that should be or can be quantified, but the story is making a difference with more people is a better difference. And everyone has their own story. Where do I have that from? I used to have a recording contract when I was a kid, and I would travel, and I thought I was famous in Germany, and I thought I was going to be world famous, and that whole story, and it's still there because the neural networks don't go away. They just sort of fall into disuse. But then something can come along to just trigger that. So that's one of the ways to reclaim happiness. Because yes, I so agree, Laureli, we do create it and co-create it. And I even think that we reclaim it, because I think we're born with happiness. I think our natural state is vitality and happiness and connectivity, connection and joy. And then we can reclaim that by finding a place for these stories. We can't kill the stories, because you can't kill neural networks. That's just not possible. These brain structures can shift, but they don't disappear. And so we can not let go, but we can find a place for them. So my place for mine is, well, good, let that be a driver. Let that be something that allows you to stay focused. This is really what matters to you. This really is what makes you happy, making a difference. So go forth and make a difference. So I think that whatever it is for you, you may not know yet, or you may already know, and all that is required is for you to become focused, maybe with some guidance. Maybe you get that guidance this evening. Oh, and what I wanted to say is, I forgot, is that when these bombings showed up here, in the first moment, I just thought it was ridiculous and whatevs, and like, wow, that's so important to you. It's not to me. But then I started thinking of everyone here who also saw that, and they might have a very different experience. So I got very serious, and I felt the wounding in case, sort of like, in case vicarious wounding, in case anyone here was wounded, and because I was not, I didn't get trapped into that story of this is bad and wrong, which it is, but I didn't get captivated by it. And so I want to say to you, if you felt disturbed by that in some serious measure, blessings to you and healing to you, and know that you can set that aside and give it its place. You have a strong sense of propriety, or a good developed sense of propriety, and that's good too. And you can let it sit there, let it allow to breathe there, and it doesn't have to become the filter through which you experience the evening, if that were the case.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. I should say we've had our share of Zoom bombing and MeWe events over these years. We've been doing online events for 4 years. Of course, it didn't happen until the pandemic, and lots of people were online and didn't have other ways of expressing themselves. Yeah, so I definitely got shaken by that, and I wasn't as shaken as I used to be, where I'm able to stay more in myself, and some of the trauma, maybe I'd say all the connections have loosened. And so I don't get as wound up in, when things happen. So I'm more able to reestablish a place of peace and happiness inside me. Yeah. Well, yeah, practitioners. So I was just inviting any of us, if anyone wants to share anything else about the theme of peace and happiness. I don't think we have anyone in line for questions at the moment. We are open for questions. The questions can be about anything. It doesn't have to be about the theme. And we request that you pay before you ask a question. And it's great if you ask us a personal question like you would sitting in a private session with us. Maybe I'll just say all the things before we, just for now, before we keep going. This is a great opportunity to learn, listen, and it's a great opportunity to learn from all that's asked and all that's answered, whether or not you ask a question. And also it's a great opportunity to practice opening your intuition. So you might want to have something to write with and write on, scribble, draw, take notes, and see if what comes through you is similar to the things that we share. It's confirmation that you're tapping into the same kinds of things that we are. And, oh goodness, tapping into the same kinds of things that we are. And then, sorry, I just had a confusion for a moment. I don't remember the names of the people that we kicked out. So if anyone, just as more people come in and all that, if anyone notices anything, please just let me know. Let's see. So, oh yeah. So if, when you have information come through you, you can potentially get confirmation that you're tapping into the same things as we are. And you might have something come through you that would be completely valid and connected and relevant, and we happen to not mention it. So you wouldn't get the confirmation. So please know, if we don't mention something, it still may be so true and so valid and useful. Please, if you do have something come through you for the person that asked the question or someone else in the panel, please, if you could wait until we finish answering someone's question. And then if you want, you can write to them privately and ask if they'd like to hear what came through you that might be for them. Please honor whatever they share. They might feel full after getting all of our answers. So please aim to not take it personally. Just trust that they're honoring themselves. Also, when you ask a question, all the time when you're working with someone, and particularly because this is a public format, we're recording and we'll post it online. When you ask if we go deeper than you want us to go in this format, or we talk about topics you don't want us sharing about in this format, please interrupt us and let us know. Give us guidance so that we can honor you in our response. So just some guidance of how we will aim to hold the container for taking questions today. And so back to practitioners, is there anything else you want to say about the theme, finding peace and happiness? And similarly, if anyone in the audience has any comments, questions you want us to kind of reflect on while we're waiting for our first question, feel free to put those in the chat. We're happy to say a little about that while we're stepping in. Yeah, so practitioners, anything else you want to say about the theme? And I see we've got more practitioners from our larger community in the audience today as well. It's great. maybe, I noticed all the practitioners, we have different things in our backgrounds. And I imagine that each of us chooses something that supports us in having peace and happiness whenever we're in sessions or on panels or any of those kinds of things. And some of us are more visual than others. Like I ain't visual, you see, like nothing going on over here. And yeah, I wonder if any of you want to share anything about that.
Well, aloha.
Um,
Go ahead, Sue.
no, go for it. I actually wanted to talk about, this. I look at things a little differently, and I do a lot of shadow work. So basically, I sit with my triggers a lot. Sometimes I go down the well and, I get stuck in there, but a lot of the times it really helps me get to the other side of the trigger where I understand what is triggering me and why it's triggering me. We try to create a space. Somebody barges into our space. We try to reclaim our space. That feels disempowering. So what was that about? Like, that's how I look at things, and that's how I try to stay in my power. It's like, yeah, this happened. Why did this happen? And a lot of the times, right, things that need our attention, things that we need to work through is what shows up in our space. So a lot of me doesn't get triggered anymore because it's just like, well, okay, that's funny. I don't know if I'm ready to deal with it, but I guess it's here to be dealt with. So when I start taking away the power from other things that trigger me, it kind of helps me deal with things a lot better, and I get into my peaceful state that much more easier. So I hope that makes sense. Thank you.
And Felicia.
Aloha. So the picture behind me has a picture of my aunt, which is just a reminder of just kind of over my shoulder, talking about truth, balance, and order. I do notice that people connect with that energy. So even if sometimes I'm not even verbally saying the word, that Sakam energy is flowing still through the atmosphere. And so I find it comforting. I have other ones around the room as well. And so that's just a little bit about my story.
That's great. Thanks. Anyone else want to say?
Sure. I can talk about my background. It is these are called disc plates, which is not sponsored content and all, but these are things that you can set up a magnet and put them up on your wall. And my eldest son discovered them. And so he's got his whole room, it's just lined with them. And all I said was, oh, that's cool. So he got me a dragon. This is from a Disney movie, but that's toothless. But anybody who knows me knows I love my dragons, and I love them and I work with them a lot. Over here, you can see there's an elephant. I've been connected with elephant energy the more I think about it since I was a kid, when I had some figurines. I guess they were jasper agate. I don't know where that one is, but it was an elephant. An elephant for me is about family. It's about they are really intelligent, and um I'm trying to tune into it now because I've done it before and I forgot. But they're about family and loyalty, and they remember things. So sometimes I remember more than I need to, but they also move through it in a way that is delivered, considered, and it's deliberate, and it just gets done. And they are really strong and supportive for me. And the dragons, have ancient wisdom, and I go flying with them in dream time, or they stand sentinel with me at events. I have new ones to put up later, so we'll see what comes up there. But I mean, this is part of my space, and this is where I feel safe doing these things, as opposed to, I don't have one of those specific offices, but this is my space. And yeah, I'm grateful that you all are here and sharing it with me, and that we can make this magic.
Go ahead, Joy.
Thank you, Lorelei. Oh, I was just going to say, talking about backgrounds, Well, mine is because I'm very visual, and I find that colors, bright colors, are very therapeutic for people, and also that the connection with nature, the ocean and the mountain, is the kind of a reference to something that I believe that is also very healing.
Yeah, that's great. Great. I was thinking about the contrast too, like looking like yours and Sue's have a little more in common to me, right? And then Felicia and Susy in some ways. And yeah, then Henry's kind of an interesting combination.
Yeah, I like yours, Henry.
And Henry, you're saying that's in your cards. Oh, you're muted. Let's get you unmuted.
What did you just say?
Your background. You said it. You said your background is from your
Yes.
cards,
Yes.
and Joy was appreciating it.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
nice, Henry, wonderful.
Yeah, it's not this, it's not the card, but it's a modified, because otherwise there would be some very large lettering here. Yeah. You know, I was kind of half listening. You know, sometimes how you do the kind of listening where you kind of vibing what's being said rather than listening intellectually, mentally to each word and the meaning of each sentence. Just and it's been a while. It's probably been maybe a week or so that I talked with the divine. So this is kind of my background. My whole life has been the divine, you know, or maybe some people would call it higher power or God or universe. And it's probably most closely related to in Hinduism, the idea of the ground of all being, and then everything arising from that ground of all being. And then for me, one of the things that arises is a Godhead, so like a personality with whom I can speak. And in my case, it's a male, even though I'm like intensely, even as a non-binary person, I'm intensely a feminist, and it's like dismantle patriarchy. And yet the revelation that I received many years ago at a beach house during a workshop was of this beautiful male face, very soft, perhaps maybe even a non-binary face. And this is, but I refer to him as he because this is what feels was true there. And I don't want to change it because I have a political agenda to make that non-binary. I don't feel like that would be authentic. And so that's what was coming through as I was just kind of listening in this sort of vibing way. And I call him my chuckling God, because when I ask for advice, he always says, you're doing great and you're fantastic and I love everything you do. And then I say, if I would ask the opposite, wouldn't you say the same? And then he chuckles because the answer is yes. And so I was saying, do you have something for us? Do you have something that I should share? And he very quietly said, all is well. And I'm listening to that and I'm like, I don't know if I can say that to everyone, because not everyone feels that way. And isn't it disrespectful for those people who are, like, for example, the people who are fighting on the front in Ukraine? I mean, how inappropriate do I feel would it be for me to say, hey, guess what? All is well. You know, and so I'm like, give me something else, give me something else. And so I'm just there, and then much louder than before, I'm hearing all is well. I'm like, don't you have something more? Something else, something different, something uniquely for this moment? And then he chuckled. So here you are. So that's what I contend with. All is well. So I'm sorry, that's the only message that came through for me right now. I hope that it's receivable.
Yeah, it seems like.
But Henry, it is true. It's all well, and that's you arguing with your guides. I do that all the time, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think arguing with them, because then that reinforces your thought processes, and then they get to be all chill, which can be so aggravating. But it's okay because all is well.
Yeah, the chuckling God never minds if I argue ever. It's like, you're so cute. He'll say to me, you're so cute. Oh my.
Oh, well, Viana has joined us. I want to give Viana a chance to introduce herself. Someone wrote appreciating your name, that their daughter's name is similar. So Viana, go ahead and take a couple of minutes or so and we've got a whole bunch of things that are going on. Let me say, we're going to have Viana introduce herself and share what she does. And if you want to, you can share a bit about the theme peace and finding peace and happiness. And then we have one person that might be asking a question. And then we also have someone that submitted some lovely things that we could all do. So these are some things that some other people might be doing. Oh, someone else shared too. I haven't seen everything. I think it was, let me just see. It's be sharing things that we experience as peace and happiness or that give us peace and happiness, things not only that we do for ourselves, but also things that we contribute in the world that help us be in that place of peace and happiness. The ways that we contribute to others, ways we are of service, that imbues us, imbues our experience with, say, with peace and happiness. But yeah, so Viana, let's meet Viana. So you got a couple minutes. Tell us what you do and how you chose to join this panel. What does the theme mean to you, and how do you create peace and happiness, or anything? Find peace and happiness. Whatever you want to share about that.
Well, my name is Viana Fox, and I do a number of different things, but in relationship to peace and happiness, it relates to the fundamental consciousness full body meditation that I do for myself and that I teach others. And it really helps to become fully embodied and reside in your core and be connected to the earth and be able to disentangle from whoever or whatever you've gotten tangled up with, which definitely gives you peace and happiness afterwards. So that's what I was thinking of when I saw the theme peace and happiness, was my practice, and for myself and others is helping them to really be fully embodied in their body and be able to connect and disentangle. I also teach people how to move without pain in a whole different way, being able to reorganize their body through their neurological system. It's called movement intelligence. And I do a whole lot of other things. What else? I'm constantly being guided by my angels and all the subtle beings that I've lived with all my life. They're always guiding me and helping me, and I help people connect to their subtle beings and their guardian angel and anybody that wants to be employed by them, any beings that wants to be employed by them. So I don't know what else to say.
Great, great. And you make some products too. I know you. I don't know
Yes,
how. I forgot to come over and look at everything at the fair this weekend.
So for 50 years, I've been creating skin products, herbal salves, and protective creams. And I had them at the fair for the first time. It was really fun.
Great, that's great. Well, let's see. So we don't have a question that was possibly coming in. It's not coming in. So let's see. So there were a couple of suggestions about. Okay, let's see. Let me go back and read. So someone was asking, I think this is great. So we have other practitioners that lurk in the audience, and they support us too when we don't have questions. I would enjoy people's thoughts and feelings about finding peace and happiness, not so much through doing what we want for ourselves, more through surrendering to a larger dimension or truth that takes us beyond what we would choose. Like one example would be like the 12-step higher power work. It's so interesting. I mean, maybe I'll say for me personally as a comment about that, this is probably true for everyone. It's not really a process, but for me, just the idea of spirit or God or goddess, or that there's, I mean, my work is about reading people's souls. So I know there's something in us that's not just our biology. Yet I grew up as an atheist and I was a scientist. And so for me, the idea that they're actually the spirit, I have this big wondering, like, I don't know how to make any like sense of spirit. And so I come to this place of openness and vulnerability and awe. And it's a cracking open experience for me every time I have my attention on that. So that's definitely something, yeah, it's like a very like simple, like to me, maybe like the ultimate thing, but my presence, having any of my present awareness on that does versions of that for me. Yeah. And then just other questions. So these just other some general questions too. So anyone that wants to share, yeah. So what is your process of connecting? And it doesn't have to be panelists. It can also be just if anyone wants to share. Yeah, so people can write in the chat. We might be able to have people unmute too. But yeah, panelists, if you want to share any of these things, go ahead, Susie.
No, I have a question. Lorelei, the word vulnerability, when you said that, that like struck a chord with me. I'd like to know what other people's input is that what how does vulnerability play in finding one's happiness or finding that peace? I think there is some vulnerability so that I get to accept that I can be happy about it, stop comparing myself. But I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on that too. Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. And I know vulnerable is one of those words that has multiple meanings. Sometimes people use vulnerable as like raw or fragile, like can be at risk of being feeling harm, experiencing harm or broken. And vulnerable also to me is it's an openness and a willing to receive, and like raw in a really good way. So alive. Joy.
Yes, I was just gonna say, vulnerability, I find comes into play for me when I'm dealing with other people in terms of peace and happiness. I find that I generally would have to be somewhat vulnerable to to reach a level of depth that then leads to peace and happiness with, in general, or with that person.
Great. Yeah, Anne, if you want to share. Anne is one of our lurking practitioners.
I'm lurking. Yeah, I guess I am. I've enjoyed this conversation. This has been really fun. I was just going to add to that courage and vulnerability are like go hand in hand. Like with what you guys all just shared. Like you have to be courageous to put yourself out there, to be vulnerable, and then to grow. When I heard that said once, I thought that seems like they're polar opposites, but actually that seems to be the case. I meditated on that and I'm like, yeah, every time I'm like courageous, I have to put myself out there. I have to be vulnerable. And that's the only way I can learn. And then that seems like the best way for me to grow, to experience more, to surrender. Surrender has been a big thing for me this year is the word surrender, just surrendering to whatever comes in front of me. Anytime I do, it works out. That's my intuition telling me to step it up. 2023 is the year of 2.0, I think, for all of us, our version of ourselves, to step out, to share more of what we have and to be vulnerable. And it's courageous to do that. That's what I feel like comes up right now. So thank you.
Yes. Courageous. And your conversation connects me with the idea of taking risks. Yeah. Like knowing we have like a word I'd also use is like solid or grounding, but it's really not that. Trusting in, it's really trusting in something that allows us to feel safer, maybe taking risk. Right? We know that if we find ourselves in chaos, we have a way of finding ourselves through that or out. Yeah. Henry, did you have something else to share? Is your hand up from before? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what comes up for me with all of this, and I really love what everybody has said, all resonates with me. And it's sort of two things. One, fragile. I remember a time, maybe 40, 50 years ago, when the idea of fragility just was such a beautiful thing. I would think of, like a crystal that can shatter, even though it's strong. And there's sort of like a dichotomy there, that it's so strong and that it can also shatter. Or glass, glass can hold so many things, but then it's so easy for it to shatter. And it seems to me that these kind of dichotomies are part of happiness and part of inner peace, because they're there. And then the question is, do we embrace them? And that journey to embracing, rather than choosing, I like one thing better over another, rather than choosing like that to embrace what both exist, I embrace both. That seems to me a path to inner peace. And then the other thing that came up for me, so I'm going to let that breathe for a moment. And then the other thing that came up for me was being present. So this ties it back into what I said at the beginning of showing up rather than just being here, because I said I would be, but actually showing up by being engaged and by directing my gaze toward you rather than toward my inner, whatever's going on. It's all joy now, all is well, right? Thank you, Divine. So present moment. I wrote about this recently in an article that I published on Medium, how being present in the moment, that is where hope is. So we don't even have to try to get it, just getting present in the moment. Right, like in that moment, between breaths or between moments, almost like this liminal state. That's where happiness is, and groundedness and presence and hope. And that brings me to a tool, which is a wonderful tool for inner peace, is grounding. So, if you're not familiar with grounding, if you Google it, there's a million entries on grounding, or you can hit me up. I have a grounding that I've put on YouTube that you can use as well. I don't know the Henry India Holden. You can find me. And so grounding is a beautiful tool for getting present and getting happy, and for hope to come back, because I think hope is a version of all is well.
And I just put your info in the chat so people can find these. Viana?
Yes, what has come up for me is that letting go of judgment of myself, and really allowing my adult self to be kind to my kid self. And if I know that there's not going to be any criticism or judgment, then I can feel okay being vulnerable, because I feel like I have my own back. And then, of course, I know my subtle being friends have my back, but I have to have my own back in order to feel safe. And if I'm feeling vulnerable about something, if I'm not criticizing myself and judging myself, then I can allow myself to be vulnerable.
Go ahead, Felicia. Hands are staying up, so I'm not quite sure when everyone's done. So I'll pull down some hands. Go ahead, Felicia.
Yeah, I think the difference for me when we talk about being vulnerable is really the admission that I have already been hurt in some capacity. And that is me just aligning and admitting to a past hurt that I have experienced and sharing that with someone else. That's how it shows up for me. It's already happened. Just now I'm admitting that it happened and I'm sharing that verbally out loud. Because that hurt can already happen. But if I never tell anyone else about it, I'm not being vulnerable.
And so vulnerable implies maybe a responsiveness, like a malleability, and right, the receiving of impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like if you don't come to an agreement that that did impact you, then there's no vulnerability that can happen. So there's a confession that has to happen on your part that, yes, something impacted me, hurt me, didn't align with what I thought or felt. And then I admit that to myself. There's vulnerability. So you can have vulnerability with yourself, but then oftentimes it shows up with others when they call it that, is when you verbally speak that out loud to someone else, saying that this hurt me. Because now it's in a way you may think that people don't want to share that vulnerable because now you know how to get me. So if I haven't done my healing work in order to fix that, you know how to get me again.
Yes, I'm thinking about authentic relating. We talk about being vulnerable and revealing and not sharing things that we are likely to regret later. So not setting ourselves up for a vulnerability hangover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sue.
Like 8 years ago, I thought that was a bad word. I truly thought it was a horrible way to be. It was stupid. Like who would even show up and say, "Oh, I'm feeling like this," because but now it's when you feel comfortable enough to say whatever it is you want to say and not have other people's opinions or feelings or reactions affect your truth. That to me is the meaning today. And it if we can just like simply start acknowledging that this is what I feel and this is how I want to express myself, then it kind of takes away all the fear or the backlash. To me, it felt like backlash at that moment. If I showed my weakness, then I was going to get whacked some way, somehow by somebody. So that backlash was always association. I associated that with that emotion. But now it's like, I hope I'm saying this to somebody. I hope they understand that, this is what I'm saying without any bad intentions, but at least I'm saying what I'm truly feeling. So it's a very, like Henry said, all is well, yes, all is well. Like I truly, truly believe that all is well. And the reason I say that is because I think 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of the work that we did was on a collective level. This year, I think it's going to be more of an individual level that we're going to have to understand that, yes, these are all, not all stories are pretty stories, but the bad stories are there because it draws our attention to things that we need to work through. And everybody's reality shows up differently, and everybody chooses how they want to process their emotions differently. So that's why these stories come out the way they do. And that's why I feel like, everybody's being vulnerable in their own stories, and that's why all is well, kind of a thing. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to put the information in the chat again if anyone wants to ask us a question. For those of you that are new, the way this format typically works is that So pay, it's sliding scale. So pay whatever works for you. We can be open to that tonight too. Pay what works for you to ask a question and let us know you've paid and you get in line. And if you're willing, we'll put you up here on screen with us on video. We can spotlight you and spotlight a group of us if we want. And ask your question. Tell us what's happening and what you have a question about. And chances are each of us will share some insight, usually for around 2.5 minutes or something like that. So you get feedback usually from each of us and from our different perspectives on whatever your topic is. It does not have to be connected to the theme. It might be connected to the theme. Kind of winding my way back on what everyone's been sharing, I was thinking about the words peace and happiness. They're different from ecstasy and bliss and words that to me are like there's a bigger, like more like movement, active energy happening in some ways. Bliss is a little calmer, but peace and happiness is more subtle to me. It's a smoother flow of the energy wave. Yeah. And all kinds of great things going on in the chat. Yeah, and then someone wrote in the chat about being cautiously vulnerable. Like we're the ones ultimately that are responsible for ourselves. So everything that we step into, having that awareness to ourselves at the same time, awareness of and awareness of our needs. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, this is why so all is well is what guides me through my life, even on the days when it certainly doesn't seem true. And I've become so reluctant to share that because especially when I hear it out of someone else's mouth, then I'm hearing the privilege in that. And oh my gosh, how do you reconcile that? And the same with vulnerability, it's kind of how do you reconcile that? Because there are people who cannot afford to be vulnerable. Maybe there's a circuitous route from where they can do the kind of spiritual work that in these mysterious ways changes their life, like what seems like magic. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. Like sometimes you can make something happen and there's really no explanation for how that was possible, and even terrible things can turn around. Like, for example, my ex-husband's father was in the Korean War, and he was captured by enemy soldiers, what is called enemy soldiers, and he just started praying and thinking about his family, and he just at first they were saying keep walking, and so he kept walking, and they were poking him with their guns and stuff like that, and he just kept walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking for hours, and praying and praying and praying, and then at some point he stopped and turned around and he was alone. So like, how do you explain that? That's a miracle. And these kind of miracles can happen. And I think for me, when I talk about all is well, it's in that realm, in the realm of where miracles happen, not in the realm of I'm trying to get a job and I have some qualifications that would make me certainly a recipient of that, but I can't because we're living in an extractive, oppressive society, in a repressive, oppressive, and exploitative society. Then I can't just come up, hey, guess what? You're being discriminated against, but all is well anyway. So it's like very difficult to talk about these things, and it's still true that all is well, but it's not necessarily experienced. And I think it's so important to be super respectful of that. That's my sense, right? That's my sense. And also peace and happiness. It's like almost like in America. I'm from Germany, and I grew up there and was born and raised and educated there. So I'm really bicontinental. In America, happiness is like something you better be happy. You better figure that out. That's like part of success. Where in Germany, it's not. In Germany, you don't have to be happy. People don't think that you're not successful if you're not happy. And so I think that happiness in a way is so elusive unless you can get into this realm of where the miraculous can occur. And I think that's accessible to all of us. Yeah, I think that's accessible to all of us, and I think they can happen for anyone. And somebody who said something really beautiful about vulnerability, that we've like allowed ourselves to be vulnerable to a higher power or to the source. That was Jonathan, and that makes it more acceptable. I'm not sure if I'm interpreting you correctly, but that's kind of a quick glance I took. And I think that's true. We can, no matter where we are in life, whether we have an experience of all is well or not, we can make ourselves vulnerable to a higher power if that works for us. And in that realm, all is well.
I want to jump in and respond to something, just Susie, before you jump in. So Henry, I was wondering about kind of feeling into some of the all is well before, and you just said some things that like prompted me. I really do want to say some other things. To me, the statement all is well is like a choice to align myself towards the belief that all could be well, or how can I find what is well or what is good about what is here? How can I bring my attention to that? It's like I'm a stand for all to be well, to stalk all being well. It doesn't mean that it is all well right now. So it's said to me more as a reminder than that, a declaration that it is. And I want to bring up another kind of authentic relating T group kind of concept. And I know this one from, where is her name? Crystal and Dylan. And she speaks about the concept of reality naming, of naming what the reality is. And I link this also to spiritual bypassing of like, it's spiritual bypassing in this case would be like speaking to a higher state than where things are now, or focusing on a higher state and not like the stage that we're at. And the reality naming is it would be naming for someone else what the reality is. It's refusing to see their perspective, refusing to experience as best we might their context. So yeah, someone in Ukraine that's right in the middle of the war, or someone that's experiencing all kinds of other things that are dumped on them right here, everywhere, right? It's a denial of their experience and their reality and the state that they're in. If we said all is well and meant that all is well, and like you're the one that can't see it that way, yeah, which I know is not what you mean. So yeah, so it's using the idea of all is well as a tool, right? As a way of shifting or moving or aligning, or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that definitely seems to me complementary what you're saying. It's complex, isn't it?
Yeah. All right. Susie, you want to step into wherever you want to go now?
Yeah. I feel like this is one of those really awesome conversations because I keep coming up with questions. So, but when Henry said, all is well, and it felt like a privilege, it brings to mind the concept that everything is energy, and where you direct your energy is what you manifest. But there is that, did you call it I don't know, a dichotomy, a paradox, that not everything is great, and you don't want to blow sunshine up somebody's backside saying, no, it's all going to be okay, when they're there, hooked up to and have lines coming out of them, or experiencing daily prejudice, or experience something, and you cannot blow that sunshine up their backsides because it's not always true for them, but there is that hope. Now, you brought up privilege, so I feel like there are times I certainly can't speak to all the society's problems because of this privilege that I have. And so that is creating that whirlwind in my brain that I haven't been able to sort out right here. So I'm going to jump to another topic. We're kicking around the word surrender in the chat, and surrender is another one of those terms that has so many different implications to it. The surrender, it's like you got me, or the surrender where your hands are out and are offered up to receive, and that you're giving up control over what goes on. I find, traumatic experiences can have the result of somebody wanting to be in such control because they were out of control. So learning to surrender to change, learning to surrender to being vulnerable is a big step. I don't know where that's taking me right now. I don't have very clearly laid out thoughts here, but these are the questions that are coming up for me. And so that's what I'm going to do, is just look to see where I'm focusing. And I know that that can shift from day to day. So I don't have a smooth sign off here, but those are the thoughts that are going through my head right now. So I'm grateful to everybody for making me think more and deeper. This is so valuable. And so they're great. Thanks. I'm done.
For those of you who just joined us or joined us recently, this is our panel on finding peace and happiness. We typically take questions from the audience, and at the moment we're having a conversation about peace and happiness and vulnerability and surrender and all these different and honoring each other's experiences and how to find peace and happiness and not deny someone else their experience at the same time, to deny what they are experiencing. Yeah, it's a deeper conversation. So we're inviting anyone else that wants to share something in the chat, or if someone wants to come up and share on the microphone too, of what is finding peace and happiness for you? What is vulnerability for you? Yeah, just any of those kinds of things. And if someone wants to ask a question of the panel, we would love to take a question. It is sliding scale. It is $20 to $28, or sliding scale, or $12 for BIPOC folks as a step of making reparations. So yeah, we take questions on anything, any topic. It may be related to the theme and it might not. Yeah, we're talking about connection to a higher power and all kinds of things. More info in the chat. Yeah, so practitioners on the panel, if you're wanting to share something, and then yeah, I appreciate that others are part of the conversation today as well.
Can I say something? I feel like I have so much to say. One of the things that I really want to, when we judge other people's story as being happy or sad or whatever it is, right? Like, it's not our story, it's their story. Me saying, it hasn't been an easy life for me. I have had many experiences in my, I like to call my old me, where I don't know how I survived it. I don't know how I'm standing here today. I don't know how I am the person I am today. But at the same time, really the emotion that, like, I think drove me was that there is hope and there is a better tomorrow. So that means that this is here for a reason, and this will be okay too. So again, I'm tying into that all is well feeling, because yes, I'm not happy. I'm actually quite miserable, but whatever this is, I'm stronger because I went through that, right? Like it's kind of like the flip side of, I'm miserable, but it taught me to be who I am today. So that was also okay. It's really hard to, how do I say this differently? Okay, let's say this differently. If we are looking at Akashic records, right? We're all experiencing different realities in the same story. Even though it's the same experience, each one of us is taking away a different experience from it. And that's where being vulnerable is. That's where being, oh my gosh, I'm privileged. Oh my gosh, you're not. Like, all these emotions that we draw into those situations is how we see the stories. And so that's the reason, it's like, yeah, I'm seeing what I'm seeing because this is the place that I'm coming from. So it's the valid or correct emotion that I'm feeling for myself in that story. Does that make sense? I keep digging, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
That's right. I was starting to type it into the chat, but I could just say it. To me, like saying that, and again, these are kind of slippery things, and depending on how people hear them, right, it can have different impact on people. The idea of the phrase that something happens for a reason, if it's helping me trust that there's light at the end of the tunnel, helping me trust in that I'll go through this, that I'll make it, that I'm finding my energy and my trust of the process. To me, that's helpful. And if I interpret it more of like everything happens for a reason, and that I'm like saying like I deserve this, like there's a reason why I needed to go through this and I deserved it, then it would hurt me. So it would deflate my energy and keep me from peace and happiness, maybe I could say. So it really depends on how we're interpreting, and also when we say it, how other people that hear are interpreting them. So to me, in saying these phrases, there's a responsibility in helping create the context for the listener.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. In my case, I'm only speaking for myself. Like when I was playing the victim in my story, it was a big bad world. And when I started feeling empowered, it was like, oh, well, let's see what's in this story. So I'm absolutely only speaking for myself. I don't mean to say, and
And I know
it's not.
yeah.
I'm not generalizing. So
I'm kind of speaking for like the larger, like us in the spiritual
absolutely.
community, and ways that we might actually be like doing spiritual bypassing or dishonoring other people in the phrases that we use, if we're not being responsible for the context that we create around what we share. Yeah, we don't often talk about this much in our community. Yeah, Joy, and then Henry.
Oh yeah, mine. I had kind of a little bit corollary question. For the practitioners, and that would be, how do you bring about peace and happiness for yourself? What do you do, or how do you achieve that for yourself?
Right, and then that's why it's started to play with that a little earlier. And so let's I'm gonna have Henry share if it's another just share related to what we're doing, and then maybe we can come back to that. And then examples are like, what do we do in a personal way? What do we do in a connecting and an outward way? Like someone mentioned like 12 steps, or we talk about spirit. And then what do we do in terms of like a service way? And or maybe there are big other categories too of how we might do this. But yeah, go ahead, Henry.
Okay, that's great. Great question, Joy. Good job. And yeah, I know, Laureli, you were kind of heading us there earlier. In the service way, it's very easy to answer, in that when I'm with a client, what stands in the way of their happiness and what the shape of the happiness would be for them becomes evident very quickly. And my belief is, and I don't want to, I'm not mentioning it because I want to push it, I'm mentioning it because this is my personal experience. My belief is that there's the superconscious. Carl Jung called it the superconscious. In Hinduism, the world soul, where we can all connect on a level where everything unfolds, and the truth, spiritual truths are available. And in a session that just becomes revealed, and then you look at what does it take now to manifest that, or to get back there, or to unconceal that, etc. So that's quite easy to discover that, and then develop from there. What will it take to manifest that? Personally, it used to be for me that I would process my stories, and I would distinguish between what happened and what I say about it. What happened and what I say about it. Because what happens and what we say about it are distinct from each other. And it's the narrative, what I say about it, that causes more often the unhappiness or the lack of peace than the thing that happened. But again, that's not always true. And it's a very heady, very intellectual pursuit. It's very much psychological, intellectual. And I've really gotten away from that, especially earlier early last year. I took a class, Radical Eco-Psychology. Thank you, Laureli. You are forever in my roster of the people who made the most difference in my life by suggesting this class. And it really made me understand in a visceral way that I'm nature. And for me, how I bring about happiness and peace and groundedness is by remembering that. And how I do that is by going there. There's a forest north of here, about 10 minutes by car. And I walk in that forest, Stephen and I walk in that forest, and I'm like, here are the trees, and I'm a human, and it's not distinct from each other. In that here is like a different tree, and over here's a bird, and it's all nature. It's all Mama Gaia, if you will. And that is what completely restores me. And it's like a treasure, you know, it's like the golden pot at the end of the rainbow. Didn't know it was there, hadn't even heard about it. And there it is, reconnecting with the physical source, which is the Mother Earth. Reconnecting with the physical source brings instantly freedom from all that stuff that's going on. How much is that because of the privilege that I have living in a safe space and not being, you know, not et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure, because I am now in a rather privileged space compared to when I was a child. There was a time when we lived on $1 a day, which is ridiculous in the Western world. But, you know, my dad had died and we had nothing. So I am familiar with that. And I was completely happy at that time. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was 14. So it's odd. All is odd. But I do experience that being in the world, and I don't mean the human-made world, but in the world, the real world. Being in that real world is a guaranteed process of guaranteed way of being happy and fulfilled and peaceful and at peace with everything. I mean, everything. It's like when galaxies collide, we don't go, oh my God, these poor galaxies, you know. We're like, oh, galaxies collide. You know, like now I'm like my little hummingbirds. I'm like, oh, I hope they make it through the cold winter. But when I'm in the forest, I'm not going around, oh, I hope the birds here are making it through the winter. All is well there because it's all in balance. All right, I could talk on and on
Great.
and on.
Yeah. Not all is well for every single individual being, and we trust the all is well in the balance of the things. Yeah.
Well put together there.
Great. And so I put a note in the chat of a bit of the formality of the question. And by the way, Sujata and I sometimes go walking in forests that's maybe 15 minutes north of you. I don't know where this forest is now. Those of us that are here in the Seattle area. So in the chat, I put, so how do we create peace, happiness? So examples of categories are personally, by connecting with something larger than us, by connecting or by being of service. So these are like examples of how we might create peace and happiness. So it was asked, like, particularly the panelists, if we want to share, and anyone is welcome to share in the, I was just looking at the map. Okay, it is, it's Hamlin Park. Okay, I've not been there yet. All right, cool. All right. That's great. Yeah, so if anyone wants to share. Anyone else wants to share in the park? Share in the park. See, I want to go to the park now. Share in the chat. Well, I'm going to say a connecting with, well, they're also just thinking of like themes that we probably all, like lots of us do in terms of connecting with something larger than us or connecting with nature, is looking at the moon, right? Looking at the moon and looking at the stars when we don't have clouds, right? That's probably a way that lots of us are connecting with something larger than us. And we feel that sense of calm and awe.
I was going to add something, Laureli, just mindfulness, as it's called, which really is kind of an oxymoron. I think it's mindlessness because you're really clearing your mind. So that's the way it's explained, to us, but we know it's clearing your mind and just being in the moment, and just bringing ourselves back to just right now and not head tripping in the future, not thinking about what happened in the past and how we're going to deal with it, just being in the moment. And then the other thing I was going to say is, after we remember this, is this too shall pass. So if it's not, all is well right now, it is going to pass because eventually it will be well. We just come up with whatever little things that work for us, and that one works for me. So I thought I would share.
Yeah. And even if in like this physical phase of our life, this does not pass, it's still useful for moving us towards that place of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel and increasing the likelihood that we might make it through, which most of the time we do. Yeah, it does pass. You totally got me looking for mindlessness. This is great. That's lovely. I have a friend that anyway, it just remind me, her work is calm up instead of calm down.
Mhm.
Calm up.
Yeah, we want to raise our vibrations, not make them down, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Well,
Yeah, someone's appreciating in the chat and they feel full and they've taken off. Go ahead, Susie.
Yeah, kind of in line with that, Anne, is detachment, which is not caring about something, but it is removing yourself from actually not over caring, but it's having that space, I am I, you are you, and in between us is God. So being able to see that and go, you can use, if we're talking about buzz phrases like, my, isn't that interesting when somebody's going through their thing, or not my circus, not my monkeys. That's,
mhm.
and I have found that when I have been working actively at that, other things flow smoothly. It doesn't take me out of the general flow, but it takes me out of flows that could possibly make me like run into an eddy or run aground or something. But I stay in a stream of consciousness. So when I drive, there are many times I'm like finding myself talking to my guides. Today I had to remember to turn on my recorder because I was channeling. Luckily, my guides know how to drive safely. So I was able to get some stuff out of my head and bring it through. But that makes me really happy, is knowing that I can contact them, and like with Henry's chuckling guide, they don't have any ego around it. They're like, sure, yeah, whenever you want to come back, cool, fine, we're here. So having that confidence, that sense of security, that I can call on them and they're like, sure, yeah. But then I have learned that, everything is energy, source is energy, and we're all energy, that we're all source. And so the guides are aspects of me, and I'm an aspect of source. So that makes us all there. And that's been a really great mind shifting belief for me, that helps me to stay interesting, cool enough that I'm grounded, that I'm still grounded in stuff, even though I can and be casting myself out there. So happiness has been that mindlessness of watching my family interact and having a good time. But it's also being able to drive and be on my own and treating myself well. And I have found a lot more peace recently than I'd had before. So, ego has taken a break from it, and being able to be in that flow. God, it's so refreshing. It's so nice. So thank you. Mindlesslist.com. Thank you, Laureli. I like that.
Yeah, $28,000.
What?
I was
That's how
just looking.
much the
I
is
had
that how
like
much the domain
this is
is?
just part of my world. Yes, so I looked up mindlessness on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and no one owns it. A lot of people own mindless in the way that we typically talk about mindless. So I went and looked for the URL, just looking at this, and yeah, so it's $28,000.
Well, guess what? We can have it for
We can have
free.
it for
Everybody
free. I know.
here has it already. They just don't know it. It's here.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah,
If
that
I
part of my
may-
world, sprinkling
If
it
I
in.
may, I want to come back to something you said, and I'm curious what everyone else thinks of that. All is well as a tool rather than as a capital truth with a capital.
Yeah.
So so I'm interested in hearing what other people think of that, because that that's kind of how I see it too. Actually, not kind of. That's exactly how I see it too. That it might be a spiritual truth. I think it is, but certainly it's powerful as a tool. Just like my sense of that we're God on an adventure on the cutting edge of ourselves in the jungles of time and space. That's how I orient myself. And so that again, who knows if that's true, but that's certainly a tool. So I'm curious.
I believe it's true for everyone at that certain place in time where they need it, whatever vibrates for them. You know what I mean? That'll be for them if that's what applies. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just curious what everybody thinks of that all as well as a tool rather than as a reality one insists upon. I'm just curious what the practitioners think of that.
Yeah,
Sometimes I had used it for like a mantra, because I know the big picture, all is well, and it's supposed to happen because there's a learning experience in it for me at this time. But not everyone is met at that place where I am in my perception of my consciousness. So a tool is more appropriate, it would seem to me, for them.
When I am, and I know Susy, you got your hand up, you want to share. This is like the bigger philosophical thing to me. Like, how do we know that really all is well? How do we know that if spirit has an intention that it really is that all is well and that all is good? And the other phrases that we said before, like, how do we know? Isn't this only simply one perspective? Well, I throw that in the mix just to hang there. Go ahead, Susy. Henry.
So I like it as a tool because it gives us a focal point. It's like when you use tarot cards, they're an external focal point for you to connect with source and to get the message, even though you could probably wipe the cards off the table and say, okay, let me focus. But it as a tool, I think all is well is good to remind us and as I said earlier, to give us hope. Because if we don't have hope, that's when we kind of spiral out and forget that source is there. I really do rankle at that. It happens for a reason. Short story is that I was in a baby group and one woman lost her child and the women kept saying, it all happened for a reason. And, God has a plan. And the woman got so upset with that. She said, why? I want to know the physicality of it. Why did this happen? And they had nothing to respond with. So for me, that feels just a wee bit like spiritual bypassing there. It's like not taking accountability for anything, but just passing out a platitude. So that is that fine line where all is well could be that whole like, oh yeah, it's okay, don't worry about it. And then not knowing and getting lost. So using it as a focal point for hope to say, yeah, we have this reality we can create. It's going to take all of us to do it. And it may not always happen as soon as we want, but I feel that we have got so many things in motion to shift reality in such a way that all is well. And it gets to trickle. No, I don't want to use trickle. That's been spoiled recently, but it gets to spread out for other people because, as I shift my energy, I help to other people to shift and to shift the energy in general. So excellent questions. I'm so happy with this one. Thanks.
Thanks, Susy. Henry, and then Felicia.
Wow, I got so completely taken by what you said, Susy. So I understood that I was making a point. Okay, yeah, right, Laureli, you asked a question. Well, how do I know that all is well? At the beginning, I introduced myself as a mystic. So being a mystic is either is either mental illness or it's real. So I don't know which it is. I think that I have seen this myself in person with non-eye eyes, that all is well. I have heard the divine say that to me and reveal that to me many times my entire life. And this is what makes me believe that, because I believe that that's real. I don't think that I had a psychotic break every time, and which I have been told before. So it's like I'm kind of smiling at that, but at the time I felt like somebody just really slapped me in the face with a flat hand, because here's something that's the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life, and then somebody tells me that I've had a psychotic break. So it's pretty interesting. And this is where vulnerability with this stuff can hurt you, right? But, you know, I came out on the other end, and the alternative of not being vulnerable is to not being connected to all as well. So that's how I have that, right? That is just, it's been what in the parlance of that would be called a revelation. And I think, Susy, what you're saying, that like, I think what I heard you say is that all is well can be a process, right? When you say a focal point, that it can be a process.
Mhm.
That, so where it's not about whether that's true or not, but about, it's like you're planting something, and then that carries a fruit, or it has a fruit, and then that fruit will take you somewhere. That I think is in practical application, because I can't sit here and talk to my client and say, all is well, guess what, all is well. It's like, I don't want to slap other people either, you know.
Yeah, I have more I'll say. I'll wait. I'll let Felicia go. I'll get myself in line again.
Yeah, so because I've often have said all is well, and so I go back and kind of do the research, and so when I look this up, all is well really is a longer phrase that says all is well that ends well. And so it made me wonder, has this really just become a victim of people have just shortened that
Oh.
phrase to just say all is well instead of saying the whole phrase? And so for me now, realizing that when I say all is well, it could be the manifestation that even though in the moment it is not well, I am speaking that I will get to that point where I will get to the ability to say that this will end well. It may not be right now, but I'm speaking for that all is well, because the original phrase is all is well that ends well.
Yeah. I definitely believe that the healthiest intention is to use it as a tool. Like, I think that's how a lot of us use it, and we don't always provide the context that that's what we mean. And I think that that is what's intended by so many of us. So so part of Henry, right, why I could connect with ecotherapy and just from listening to you and hearing the things that you shared, I knew to send that email to you. Right. I also was a biologist, and when I was a biologist, I also considered myself as an atheist. I considered myself to be an atheist. I didn't believe in God or spirit at that time, and I had the niggling of, it doesn't all make sense to me though. Like, what do I do with this? But so I still have some of these ideas and beliefs. I remember them that I had before. So one of the beliefs that I had long ago, or one of the questions I had was, what if? And I've mentioned one of these in a previous panel. So just like I wondered, like, what if I'm someone else's Barbie? What if human brains have evolved? And I know that I'm not all my biology and my genes, but what if human brains have evolved so that we believe that all is well, believe that spirit intends that all is well? What if it is only a perspective? It's one that we use. It's a strategy we use. And what if it's not actually a truth with a big T? And I don't know how we came to be humans, and like if life is random, how does it that we came to be in this particular form? So just like for me, if life is in other places, which of course it probably is to me, you know, and besides the thing that we know now, it doesn't have to look anything like us because we're some random coming together of, this happens to be a version of life. Anyway, I have that openness of like, I don't know. What if it's only a perspective, and I hold it loosely while I also use it as a tool. Yeah.
Should I answer that, or should I wait until Joy
Sure. I
says?
think, yeah. And like, Joy, if you don't have anything to say specifically about that, it might be easier. Yeah. Like, go ahead. Yeah. Henry, what do you?
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're saying is, I really love that, you know, like, what if sort of like, you know, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, what if that's just some configuration in the brain that causes that, and there's really not a light at the end of the tunnel? I don't know if you've heard that before. And I think that's a legitimate question. I think, thank you for having the courage to ask that. And this is where ecopsychology, or ecology, really deep ecology is what it's called, where that comes in, right? So interestingly enough, and this is my personal experience, and I only can speak from my personal experience, of course, with regard to that. When I am in nature, or in the forest, or wherever I'm in nature, or I have my hands in the soil, gardening or something, I don't need that phrase, all is well. I don't need anything. I don't need anything. I'm right here, right now. And that's all there is. There's only now, now, and now, and now, and now. And I'm just a being on this planet, being. And it's good in all its senses, in all its meanings.
Right. And I link it back again, right, to we know that we're privileged and that we have enough peacefulness around us that we can put our hands in the soil and breathe and take that time. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for responding right then, Henry. That's great. Joy, and then Anne, and then Sue. Oh, Joy's hot. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a few things come to mind that, yes, all is well in terms of a tool, like a shift in perspective toward the positive, all, if it's not well at the moment, it will end well. But then it strikes me that it's also all is as it has to be, therefore it's well. And it has to be well because it has to be. So there's that kind of aspect, and it just depends on how you look at it, I think. But I think there's that aspect to it. But again, that's away from what you're talking about, Henry, like being so in the moment. I think animals are very much the same way. They are so in the moment that they can appreciate, one moment or a certain time, and then they're doing something else, or they're having to survive, but then for however long they can appreciate the moment.
Yeah, I agree. The other animals besides us humans seem to be much better at being in the moment. Right. Someone else was next before Sue, or Sue's next and someone else's hand went up and down? Whoever is next. Was it Anne? I've lost track.
I was just going to say that it's Joy covered it, but being in the moment, all is well if you're just in the moment, focusing on the moment. It can be well, it's not, it is a light. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So anyway, go ahead, Sue.
Oh, you're muted, Sue. Let's get you unmuted.
Okay. When I think with my mind, I question if all is well. If I feel with my heart and stay in peace, all is well. Because everything has to be, and this is again just my perspective, but in my mind, when I look at the stories, when I'm working with the people that I work with, they have the experiences. We write our own stories. And that's why all is well. Because when we believe, like when we're standing in a position of power and we believe that we wrote our own story, and then when I feel with my heart, I feel like, yeah, all is well. Because I also can understand how to change the story and make it all better. So then all will be well. So that gives me that freedom of, okay, how to make it better. Like if I believe that all is well, then I automatically believe that I can make the changes I need to make to get to that better place that I want to be in. And that's why it's like, it's okay, I can get through this. I have the tools that I need to get through this present situation, and I can get to where I want to go. And that's what makes it, oh, okay, all is well. Like, it's actually a mantra. And like Joy said, like Joy nailed it when she said that, yeah, it has to be the way it has to be to get to where it needs to go. So that's why all is well, I guess. And it's that peace in my heart that says, yeah, all is well. It's my mind that questions it, right? It's your mind that makes you wonder, well, this is stupid. Like, how can this be okay? But if you take away well, I don't know, maybe I'm introducing the word trust into the situation.
We were trust, we come bang back, and we're like, yeah.
Yeah, if I'm going to trust that, my faith, my belief system, whatever it is. There must be a reason for why I wrote the story I wrote, and I have to also believe that, well, okay, there must be a point to it, so all is well.
And it jump into that for me, something that's essential maybe in using the tool all is well, or focusing on the light potentially at the end of a tunnel, is that I do it in a way where I don't override whatever else is happening. So if I use it to shut down my feelings, then I'm preventing that from being so. It's a mask. It is spiritual bypassing. So there needs to be an acceptance of what is, while I also have a trust in a flow, an unfolding.
It's not, it's a hard place to get to. It's not an easy place to sit there and be like, I'm miserable, I'm depressed, but even this is okay. Like I've been in that place. I don't say this lightly. But I think now when I look back, I think I have always been spiritual. I always knew that there was a point to it. And that's what gave me the courage or the faith to be like, no, you know what? Tomorrow's going to be better for sure. And that's where that consciousness, that feeling in your heart comes from. That's that peace that exists, you want to connect to it and drive your life to that.
And Jonathan wrote in the chat, says, yeah, is well equal peace. When we say like all is well, like all is peace. Yeah, and I think they're very
it's
connected.
the peace. Yeah, true. Good. Yeah, true, Jonathan. Very true.
Yep, great.
For me,
linkage
at least, yeah, that's true. Thank you.
And Henry.
So interesting. It's become quite a philosophical discourse here. It's quite nice. Thank you for facilitating that, Laureli. When you say a phrase over and over, especially when you say it fast and without a break, it starts losing its meaning. Have you ever done that? Like saying a word over and over, and it's like before you know it, that word doesn't mean what it means. So that's a little bit what happened for me here with all is well. It started kind of falling apart for me, and this is not an uncommon experience. And sort of as it fell apart, something got in there because a space was opened up, and it was called, I know this makes no sense, and something got in there. What am I talking about? It's something that happens on another level that's not right here, like a metaphysical level, where this was all as well was solid, and suddenly it broke apart, and then it opened a space, and what came into the space was acts of love. And I think that goes back to happiness, and whether all is well or not, and whether that's a tool or a spiritual higher truth or a universal higher truth, one thing's for sure: we want to be happy, and we want to see others happy, unless we're extremely unhappy. And acts of love make that happen. We want this beautiful world, and acts of love make that happen. So I think all is well is almost sort of like a catch-all for feeling better, and acts of love is a catch-all for making better. And why am I bringing that up? Just to introduce that as well, because are we really here just to feel better, or are we really here just to feel good ourselves, and then have compassion for those who don't? I think we're here to love. Yeah, I think we're here to love. So I just wanted, that came through, and I just wanted to add that to the mix.
Lovely moment of silence after that. Go ahead, Joy.
Oh, I was just going to say that's wonderful, Henry. I would totally agree with that. We're here to love. It's like the prime objective. I think that's really, it has to be that. That's what will make all is well. In fact, what my saying is, love is the strongest force in the universe, and it always will be. but sometimes we have to choose to help make it so.
Oh, yes, many opportunities to choose to go in the direction of making it so. To me, that's what the journey is to keep redirecting myself towards that or towards some equivalent of that. How do I see what is good here? How do I make more of what is good here? Yeah. How do I include what's here and go in the direction that flows through me? Yeah, how do I be with what is, like not deny what is, include what is, and move in a direction that either I'm as a human attached to or that feels like spirit going through me. Yeah. How to be loose enough with all this and find what's wanted. As I say it in a passive way so that it's not like an act from me. Yeah. And I just go back to one of the questions from earlier of love. I think of love as a little bit more of a state of being. It does also have an action. And if I look at us as different archetypes, right, I have an action archetype. So for me, part of how I express love in the world is through action. And maybe that isn't so for everyone as much as it is for me. So I was thinking about that earlier question of how do we express love or find peace and happiness, create peace and happiness? Right? There's personally, if you're connecting with some higher or greater experience or service that we do in the world. So I know we had a fair in Linwood last weekend in the Seattle area. It had the largest attendance of the times we've tracked attendance. So I had the largest attendance. It was full the entire time. One practitioner or one vendor mentioned it started to slow down a little bit 15 minutes before we ended on Sunday. So full. I felt so much more peace and happiness, and that I was not in fear or worry of thinking, oh, what do I need to do to bring more people here? Are the practitioners and vendors feeling full enough? So I had so much more a state of peace and happiness over the weekend. And I think that's a big part of why, right, today was so lovely. Even yesterday after, right, I live out in the woods, my choice, like 10 trees came down along our road and no electricity. And I had things I wanted to do on the internet and allowed myself to stay peaceful, waiting, doing other things, got a message that a car had gotten through and gotten all the way down the road, grabbed everything and got down that road before more trees fell. And I know someone that had this lovely spot with internet. Thank you so much for letting me land in your space. And yeah, just simple, right? Sitting there on the floor, my day unfolded just fine. Are there more things that we want to say about this before we complete today? We're scheduled to be here another half hour. We could be here another half hour, or we can end sooner. It's up to us. And if anyone has a question, we'd love to ask a question. Yeah, we might all be getting full. I think we've traversed a lovely journey tonight. Yeah, Viana, you've been quiet a little bit. If you wanted to say something, it looked like you might have wanted to say something. Go ahead. Yeah, and you bring the most wisdom of the most years treading on this journey.
Well, I've had plenty of times when I didn't feel all was well in my life, but especially this last week and a half, because of what happened. But I've been listening and thinking, and I don't usually say that term, all is well. It's just not part of my vocabulary. I feel it. But for me, when my body, my whole being is functioning and not hurting and complaining, or if I understand why it's hurting and complaining, as long as I understand what's going on, then I feel it's okay, because then I know what to do. And I agree with Henry about, I rely on nature. I rely on the trees and the birds. I feed birds on my balcony. And when I get really upset, then I go out on my balcony and I talk to my plants and I talk to the birds. And it's just brings me right back to what's, because all we have is the moment. That's all we have is the moment. So if you can get into that, that's what saves me. You know, I get going on with my thoughts and everything, and then I ask my angels to help me, and they say, remember, all you have is the moment. So can you get in the moment and just be? And whenever I do, it's okay. Because when I look around, I have a place to live, I have food, I have transportation, even though it's a rental car because of an accident I was in. But if I can really stay in the moment, then all is well. Because that's all we have is the moment. And so what's taking me out of the moment?
Which brings us back to mindlessness.
So thank you for sharing all your thoughts, because I agreed with almost everything you all said.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, yeah, so I think we're going to be closing up for tonight. We'll go through and have practitioners share again who they are and what they do and how you can connect with them and all those lovely things. And Felicia, you're the latest time zone right now. I want to invite you to go first.
Aloha. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure connecting with everyone this evening. I do hope you guys were all encouraged in some shape or form. If you'd like to connect back with me, you can reach me at sevenfoldcoaching.com. One way that if you're feeling though, like, hey, how can I exude energy for Felicia participating today, I would love for you to check out my YouTube channel, Felicia Miller Johnson, where I broadcast my show, All Intuitive Conversation. If you're interested in being a guest, feel free to reach out to me as well. And until we meet again, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Felicia, for being here and playing with us. Who wants to go next? Practitioners on the panel. It's up to you, whoever wants to leap in. Most of us are Pacific time. Maybe we're all Pacific time. We could go south
I'll go
first.
next.
Okay, go. Yeah.
I'll go next. I'm Viana Fox, and I work online and in person, and I live in the Seattle Tukwila area, and I help people be fully embodied, learn how to be living in their body at all times, in their core, and experience what it's like to be transparent, what it's like to be space, because there's no differentiation between the space outside of us and the space inside of us. And I teach people how to move with ease and reorganize their bodies so that they can get rid of the pain that they're experiencing. And I help people connect to their subtle being, their guardian angel, and the she, and the underbuddies, and the divas, and all those wonderful beings around us. And yeah, I help people find their diet that works best for them because I've studied nutrition over the years. If you're interested, my website is Viana, VIANA -motion, MOTION.com. Thank you for coming. I hope to see you sometime.
Thank you, Viana. Who's next?
I'll jump in. I'm Susy Parker Goins, Blue Lightning Healing. You can find me at bluelightninghealing.com or contact me at Susy, that's SUSY, at bluelightninghealing.com. Channel bringing through your guides so that you feel comfortable, so you can connect with them and develop your relationship with them and open up to happiness, to finding your peace. I've also got a podcast that you can find on my website or on Spotify called Blue Lightning Healing Meditations, and that's evolved over the last 3 years. And I'm also a part of the Mystic Mosaic podcast, which is also on Spotify and YouTube. I got a special MeWe 20 at checkout when you sign up for a longer session. And thank you all for holding space, and thank you practitioners for all of your insight and wisdom. See you later.
Thank you, Susie. Who's next?
Okay, I can go next. I'm so tired. This has been very filling and also tiring. So I'm Henry India Holden, and I can be reached at henryindiaholden.com. And I just wanted to share with you that I pulled 2 cards from my deck. I'm not going to share them on digitally. I'll just hold them up. The first card I pulled was the Magician, or magic, what I call it here. And I was like, okay, so make some magic this evening. That's how I took it. And then about 15 minutes into it, I pulled this card, and it was peace. And I was like, all right, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. So that's kind of how I read the cards. And this is what I work with, this deck. It's also available if you want to purchase it. You can go to henryindiaholden.com and go to the shop tab if you want to get it. And let's see here, what else is there to say? I don't know. You want to be happy, but you're not? Come see me. I can help you be happy or become fulfilled in what you do in life. I work with people on anything and everything with numerous modalities that how they are brought together is that I do feel divinely guided in whatever we do, which is, I don't really know what that means when I say that, but it describes something that's real, if that makes sense to you. Oh, also, I offer a free 30-minute conversation for you to find out if you want to work with me. And I do have a special of a 3-pack. It's called Fresh Slate, which is great for the beginning of the year. It's a 3 50-minute sessions for $99.
And I hope you hear this as a compliment. Something that you shared brought childhood songs to my mind, to my heart. You said if you want to be happy and you're not, and it rhymes with the, you know what I'm referring to. That's great.
And actually, how does it go? Because I've heard it before, and I think I even heard it in my head, but I didn't grow up here. So if you're happy and you, what?
And if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will really show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of verses, just like, and it's a way of playing. Yeah. So if you want to be happy and you're not, come play with me, is what you shared, in other words.
Yeah, that's right.
Great, Henry. All right, who's next? We have a couple more.
Oh, I can go. My name is Joy J. Lee. I'm an energy healer and I'm certified in hand mudras. I also work with phototherapy stem cell patches and do intuitive readings with oracle cards. Mudras are Sanskrit for gesture. Like Reiki, they're a form of energy healing, and they can be used to address a number of issues, including chakra blockages, energy balancing, release of negative energies, and emotional and physical issues. The patches work also to address the same items, similar issues. Like Henry, the purpose of the work is to make you feel better and to, give you a sense of physical and emotional well-being. And you can get in touch with me at diamondfirephoenix.com. I do have a special too. It's 30 minutes for $25 or 50 minutes for $40, and the first 30-minute consultation free. So I really enjoyed everyone's conversation tonight. Thank you, everyone, all the practitioners for a lovely conversation. It's really nice.
Can I just say that I've tried the patches that Joy is talking about, and they worked. Unfortunately, I have psoriasis, so I cannot put anything on my skin, basically, just nothing. But I did it a little bit, and I stopped before I started having a bad reaction, but it worked while I was using it.
Thank you so much, Henry. I'm so glad. I was really saddened that you weren't able to use them longer, because I think they really would have helped.
Seems that way to me.
Invent some other form of using them. And we have another practitioner. Sue, you. Yes, you.
I'm just chilling, listening. Okay. I really appreciate this topic because every time I do a session, it feels like that's what it's about. This person sitting in front of me is not happy, not feeling peaceful. They're trying to get to that place of feeling good in their life. That's why we have these sessions. And I want to say that we don't have to do this alone. Like, we don't need to heal ourselves alone in our solitary little world anymore. We're all out here. We all have different tools. Like, I use Reiki, I use Akashic Records, I use energy healing. Like, I'm an intuitive empath. I can actually feel what my client is feeling, and I can simply just hold space in what they need and move it and clear it so that it's, they get to their next, they get to the current piece, and then they're ready for whatever the next journey is. So I think that's also my moment of peace, where, okay, I did good. I helped one person, So that's what I do. And right now, my only social media is my Facebook page, which is Light Side Me, which I believe is an activation in itself. The more you believe that you're light side me, and you will connect to your own light, and that's what's going to get you one step closer to your own peace. Right. So it's peacing out. So peace out. Thank you.
Great. As you're all sharing, I was thinking of different ways of introducing myself. And I guess really ultimately, I am a matchmaker. Laureli Shimayo, I'm a matchmaker. I match you with your purpose, or I help you match yourself to your purpose. I match you with a fulfilling career path, which is expression of your purpose. I help match you with soulmates who have similar souls as you. And I can help match you with peace and happiness, and that the way it is for you. And mine is a more active flavor, right? Understanding and doing, because that's my peace and happiness. To honor for each person, what is their peace and happiness? What is your purpose? What is authentic and true and vulnerable and in alignment for you? So yeah, I'm a matchmaker. And you can find out more about me at intuitiveeyereading.com and matchmakingsoulmates.com. And really, I'm just a matchmaker, a matcher. So thank you everyone so much for coming here today. It's been lovely being together. We have all kinds of interesting conversation, all kinds of synergy and healing and holding and exploration together as a community. Thank you everyone for coming and holding space and sharing all kinds of interesting ideas in the chat and questions for us to explore and dancing with us. We have other panels where we answer questions from the audience. Those will happen as well. Another one coming up is on Friday, January 13, our only Friday the 13th this year, on witchcraft and alchemy. That is coming up soon. We also have a drop-in group for starting and growing your business. We have a practice circle coming up where you can practice your gifts with peers. We have another panel, healing through creativity, and we've got in-person fairs coming up in Eugene and Bellevue and Portland. Tons going on. It's up there in the chat. You can find it all on our website as well at MeWeFairs.com. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. It's been great being together again.